Well, that was a movie.
Hello, welcome back to First Thoughts, the podcast where I talk about movies right here in the parking lot of the theater. I'm your host, Simon, and today I'm going to be giving my first thoughts on The Last Showgirl, which was directed by Gia Coppola, obviously related to the other Coppolas in Hollywood, and starring Pamela Anderson as an aging showgirl who has come to a crossroads in her life and career and must make some difficult choices moving forward. So this movie's been talked about a lot already in regards to award consideration and stuff. It's got Jamie Lee Curtis in it, by the way, which she's also gotten some looks or some rumors as far as maybe an Oscar nom. And then it's also been talked about a lot, obviously, because of Pamela Anderson and her career arc that this movie seems to be either making commentary on or paying homage to or something like that. So a lot of people have been very interested in this movie. It's been talked about a lot, but still at the end of the day, it hasn't gotten widespread appeal. I think there was a total of 4 people in this theater. It was not in my local theater. I had to drive a little bit of a ways to get to one that was showing it. And yeah, I'm a little bit late to the party because it just doesn't have the mainstream pull that some other movies would get. And that's partially because of the subject matter, but it's also partially because of the budget. It's a low budget movie with a director that, despite being related to famous people, is not herself famous. I hadn't seen any of her movies yet. She's only done this and one other movie. She's done some shorts and some music videos, but this is the first movie of hers that I remember people really talking about. She had that one Andrew Garfield movie about, like, it was a commentary on social media and stuff, and I heard people talk about it for about a week when it came out and then completely forgot it existed. But I was curious, because, you know, the Coppolas obviously are a talented family. Francis Ford Coppola is a bit hit or miss, but has made some of the best movies of all time. Sofia Coppola similarly is also hit or miss, but has made some very good movies. So I was curious to see how far that talent went in this family and would it reach Gia Coppola. Also, Pamela Anderson, everybody knows who she is. She's got fans all over the world, and I'm a huge fan of movies like this where it's, you know, an aging star not falling from grace because of a choice they made necessarily, but it's just they're aging out of popular appeal. And so because that's something that she's gone through as an individual, I was very curious to see how she would represent a character like that and honestly kind of just represent herself on film. You often see there are roles of a lifetime where it's like whether or not the actor is that talented, because if we're being honest, Pamela Anderson isn't known for her acting ability. There's roles that come along that are like made for you, made for that person, and so they're able to achieve greater success or greater recognition or even get awards and stuff because they're doing something that was just made for them. It's perfect for them. So I was curious to see what she could do with a role like this because there's something very personal for her to do and possibly achieve with this, and so I was rooting for her going into this movie. I am a fan of movies like this in general, like I said, but it also did remind me in ways of movies like Whiplash or something like that, La La Land, where it's, you know, not romanticizing, but discussing the obsession that it takes to be famous and reach stardom, as well as, you know, the costs of all of that. So honestly, it was a plot that really was intriguing to me on the surface. I was also curious to see how well certain people would perform, both, you know, Coppola as well as Pamela Anderson. And it's also got other people in the cast, Jamie Lee Curtis. Some talent is involved in this project, so I was curious. I was definitely curious, went in hoping it would be good, and I will say, it's not really. There's elements to this movie that I really do enjoy. I think Pamela Anderson did act her heart out. I don't think she's a very talented actress, and I think her performance was limited by her ability, but there was still something raw and real there because she was drawing from her own personal life, and I think that showed. I think, you know, that was something that really came across as authentic at times, even if her delivery wasn't always great. There was a lot of her performance that felt preachy, or like she was accepting an award, like it was an acceptance speech type delivery for a lot of her lines. And then, you know, there's other actors that you see do well in other movies that weren't particularly doing well in this either, like Jamie Lee Curtis or Dave Bautista. And part of that was, I think, poor directing, but ultimately what really mars this movie down is awful writing. It's such a waste, and it really is very depressing to watch, where, like I said, you get these once-in-a-lifetime movies where it's like, this movie was for Pamela Anderson, and it was perfect for her, and it should have been good. But it's just so poorly made that you have to really sift through a lot of garbage to try to see the good in there, and that's frustrating because it should have been good. It had every right to be good, but one, the dialogue is contrived, it's fake sounding, it's awful, it's, you know, a lot of say, don't show, which is frustrating. Like, for a movie about a showgirl, there's very little dancing at all. You see Pamela Anderson dance, I think, once and like 1.5 times, and you see that at the end of the movie, and it's like, I get that this movie isn't about the dancing, but it is as much about the dancing as Whiplash is about the drumming, and they showed a lot of drumming in that, you know, because it's context. It shows this person, gives us a reason to understand who they are, because as an artist, you show yourself best through your art. So if you want us to get to know these characters, we should get to see them and see them in their element. Similarly, Dave Bautista's character is supposed to be important to the plot, but we never get to know him at all, like really at all, and that's very frustrating because he is trying to deliver a good, well-rounded performance, but he's given nothing to work with. So ultimately, I don't blame anyone really from the cast for being poor in this movie, because, like I said, the working environment was just not one to succeed in. The script is terrible. It leaves you wanting so much more. It doesn't explain anything. It's, like I said, the dialogue is beyond awful at times, and the plot is meandering and boring. I didn't get interested in anything that happened on screen until an hour and 15 minutes in, I think, was when I checked my watch, which this movie's 85 minutes long. So that means there was only about 10 minutes of anything interesting happening, and it was because Pamela Anderson's acting actually broke out and did something really powerful, and that was it. It wasn't the movie becoming good, it was Pamela Anderson breaking through and saying, like, look, this is something worth beholding. And so I really just feel for her, because, like I said, this is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. She's never going to make another movie like this again. This was her one shot, and the people let her down with a terrible script, mediocre directing. The directing is pretty bad at times, because, yeah, the script being bad is one thing, but, like, a director can help the actors find their way through a scene, and it seemed like they weren't on an island. Like, nobody was helping them, nobody was trying to work with them to make conversations sound normal or reasonable or have any continuity to them at all. And then the camera work and editing were also both abysmal. The camera work was constantly out of focus, and I don't believe it was an artistic choice. Even if it was a poor one. But yeah, stuff was constantly out of focus. It was painful to look at times. There was some cool shots, you know, a lot of natural lighting that looked really cool, but ultimately I couldn't see half of it because the camera work was so bad. Also, the editing was atrocious, particularly the sound mix. There was times where there was just hard cuts where you're trying to listen to dialogue, and then the background noise is completely different or goes away entirely. And it's like, that's something that is filmmaking 101. If, you know, people go to film school or people learn how to make movies, but when you're related to somebody like a Coppola, you just get a free pass into Hollywood and you don't have to learn this stuff. Granted, she wasn't the sound mixer, but, like, if this is your project, you should probably be keeping tabs on who your sound mixer is and your sound editor and be like, hey, fix that shit. Because there was times where literally the background noise just completely disappeared entirely before the scene ended, and you're like, what are you doing? What is this sound mix? Did you forget to get room tone? Because, you know, you've got this conversation in the dressing room between Pamela Anderson and Dave Bautista's character, and when he's talking, the room tone is much louder than when she's talking. So either the microphones were set up differently, or he was talking quieter and they bumped it up with gain, or it was just a different take. Something happened in there and they did nothing to try to fix that, or they tried but weren't good at it. So yeah, it's just very poorly made, like amateurish and cheap, and just not a good movie, which, like I said, is frustrating because there are moments in this movie begging for quality, begging for something to be made of this idea, and it's a fantastic idea. Like I said, it reminded me of movies like Whiplash, which Whiplash is one of my favorite movies of all time. I love those cautionary tales of like, do you really want to be this? Do you really want to be a star? Do you really want to be famous? Do you really want this goal that you're setting out for? Because it will cost you your life. It will cost you everything. I love movies like that. And this movie had potential to be one of those movies, but it fell short because everything about the execution was bad. It really was. And that's frustrating to see a good idea fall apart like that. Or frankly, not even fall apart, just never be put together because nobody was there to make it work. Like there's stuff in there where like Pamela Anderson's character has an adult child, like an adult daughter who has a lot going on, and like their dialogue is some of the worst dialogue I've ever heard. The interactions are completely unbelievable. There's no clear motivation on either side of these characters, and when they have this big fight, it sounds like the most scripted thing I've ever heard in my life. Similarly, Dave Bautista's character, like I said, is so flat and one note because he's not given anything to develop off of until the last 20 minutes of this movie, and then once you find out what's interesting about his character, he's never shown on screen again. So we can't develop on that performance. And it's like, oh, well, maybe then if you saw him again, or if you watch the movie again, his performance from earlier in the movie will, with that added context, will be good. No, it won't, because all he does is sit around and sigh, because he's not given anything to do. And then Jamie Lee Curtis's character also has nothing to do. At one point, they just have her get up and dance when she's not even a dancer. It doesn't really make sense. And it's like they're playing Total Eclipse of the Heart, and it's cutting between her doing this awful dance with Pamela Anderson walking around like it's in a music video. Multiple times she has these moments of reflection that are filmed like it's just a music video. And I get it. Gia Coppola has worked in music videos before, but this ain't one. This is a movie. We need to get on the same page here and make art, not entertainment. You know, there's a difference. So, yeah, it's a waste of time, and it's a waste of opportunity, because like I said, we're not going to get this again. You know, Charlie Chaplin only had one Limelight, because it would have been foolish to make another one. Also, Limelight is a perfect movie, but like, you don't get another Swan song. You only get one. And for whatever reason, Pamela Anderson's sucks. And that's a damn shame, because it should have and could have been good. It really could have. And there was a story that came out where her agent didn't even show her the script, and then Pamela Anderson found out about the script and so accepted it and then fired her agent. And it's like told of like, wow, that darn agent. But at the same time, I understand, because the script sucks. The script is terrible. And so that agent had a point. But what I will say is, maybe they should have communicated a little bit more and said, like, hey, this is a decent idea, I like it, but man, we need to get a different writer involved to rework this and make something worth making out of this, because the idea's there, but nothing else is. Also, maybe get a better director involved. I don't know, maybe get Sophia involved instead. Maybe she could have done something better. So, yeah, I'm giving it a 4. It's a shame, because it should have been better. It should have been so much better, but it doesn't actually seek out anything to say. It is so shallow and void of anything meaningful in it that I wanted to like it. I really did, but it offers you nothing other than the concept of a plan. It offers you the concept of a good movie, but it doesn't actually execute it. It's like, oh, this is a good idea, here you go. And it's like, wait, no. You actually have to make the good idea. You can't just talk about having a good idea, you have to make it. So, yeah, absolutely a shame. Wish it was better. It's just not, though. It's a waste of not only Pamela Anderson, like I keep harping on, but like, you know, Jamie Lee Curtis is a very good actor. Dave Bautista has put out some decent performances. Jason Schwartzman has a great little cameo in here. He's probably the best part of the movie. Overall, though, it does nothing for its audience and leaves us with nothing. Also, I do want to give a shout out to the one person who made the most of her limited runtime. Kiernan Shipka played Jodie in this. Never heard of her before. But I've seen her in stuff. She was in Red One, and she was in Long Legs. I didn't even recognize her. She was Grilla in Red One, and she was the crazy lady in Long Legs. And once again, she's good. She's been good in everything I've seen her in so far, and she nailed her performance in this. So she made the best of a limited runtime. Everybody else really struggled. I mean, like I said, Pamela Anderson had one or two really good moments, but it's not even her fault. The script just didn't give her anything to work with. She was one note the whole time, and I get it. She's not an actress. That's not her thing. She's a model. Models aren't actors. So I can't really blame her. I blame the directing and I blame the writing, because she came to play. She came to put in the work to put out a movie that would have changed the way people saw her forever. And it still might. Because frankly, this is one of those movies that's more interesting for who made it than what they actually made. And so people will say this movie's better than it is simply because a Coppola made it, and simply because it is starring and about Pamela Anderson. So people will give it some extra brownie points for that. Like you see right now, it's got a 6 point something on IMDb. It's got a 66%. That's purely because of the intrigue and the interest based on who made it and what it's about. It is not remotely due to the actual quality of the film. And so, yeah, it's a shame, because this could have been an iconic, career-defining performance by her, but she was given nothing to work with at all. And that's just a disservice to who she is as a person, how she's developed since her career changed, and, it's a disservice to her legacy, and I think that's a shame. So, yeah, you can skip this one. It really is not worth watching. Like I said, 4 out of 10. Not worth your time, not worth your money. I understand why there was only 4 people in the theater and one of them got up and walked out. Wish it was me. Like I said, I was bored the entire time. Nothing really intrigued me until the last 15 minutes, and by then it was too late. So, yeah, go ahead and skip this one. But honestly, that's just what I had to think. What did you guys think, though? Let me know in the comments below if you're on YouTube, and if you're on Spotify or wherever else. Please just give the podcast a review if you're new here. Also, don't forget to like, share, follow, all of those good things across all the platforms you can. Thanks, guys.